the most powerful marketing ideas, you probably will never be exposed to them. I launched this product called Steal Our Winners, and so everything I'm going to share with you is from there. There's going to be a big payoff for it. Can your upsells consistently convert 30 to 50% from Justin Goff? Olaf method, you optimize the offer, the length, the opening, and the format. The next one comes from Jordan Menard. It's true, ... I can't believe I just added these 2 words to my Facebook ad, and results are higher. Next, from Charles Kirkland, and it's using Post-its to come up with an angle. Can you create target audiences of your competitors' customers and customers of complementary products for dirt cheap? The answer to all my questions is yes, you can. Taught to me by Gohar Chaudhry. This is just going to be like a very nice, consistent income stream that's going to work. Can you make money getting a lead? Like, why don't I piggyback on your lead gen? You piggyback on my lead gen. Just an interesting way to work with people in your industry to not give so much money to these big tech platforms. A new distinction for YouTube ads that's currently crushing it. This came from Walter Birch. This is a way of buying attention. Can you train YouTube's AI to find your higher converting ad placements? Of course you can. It's called the peel and stick method. To immediately cut your YouTube advertising in half. Can you create an upsell that gets a 78% conversion rate? A unique type of upsell. I did it about 1.5 years ago. This one, he launched, created, and did everything related to a coaching program just through the PS of emails. Super excited to be here, and what I want to talk to you about today is a couple of things. One is the timeline on any effective marketing strategy, which I think most people don't get, and because they don't get it, it costs them. Also, I want to explain to you why the most powerful marketing ideas, you probably will never be exposed to them until their power has been somewhat diminished, and I'll explain why. Also going to give you a bunch of different strategies right now that are currently crushing it that most of the world doesn't know about. We're talking about marketing ideas that can double, quintuple, right, 10x your business extremely fast. And it doesn't matter whether your business is old or new. It doesn't matter whether it's small or large. It doesn't matter whether it's a product or service. And it doesn't matter whether it's online or offline. Now, some things in life get better with age. Some things don't. Wine gets better with age, right? Expensive bottle of wine, 20 years from now, it's worth even more money. But milk is not. It gets moldy. And marketing is more like milk than it is like wine. Not the principles. The principles will stay the principles forever, but the strategies and tactics that deploy those principles change all the time. This is a timeline for any marketing strategy. And I've been doing this for 20 years online. I've seen this time and time again. For those that don't know, I coached Russell Brunson. I coached Ryan Deiss. I've coached most of the people that you've probably heard of. So results plummet over time. The best time of a marketing tactic is when it's absolutely brand new, when no one else has seen it. There's a corollary. In addition to the results going down over time, the effort to get the result goes up over time. So when you combine these 2 graphs, this is like the timeline of any marketing tactic or strategy. In the beginning, where the results far exceed the effort, is where insiders usually share with insiders. Taylor or Chris find something out, the next time I see them, they're telling me about it. Or I find something out, I'm telling them about it. At some point, it gets into a course. It's usually a couple years later. It still works. Doesn't work as well as when it was first invented, but it still works. Then over time, you could put fake gurus there, you could put forums, you could put whatever else. But now you can still get the result, but you have to work incredibly hard to get the result. And I'm going to show you some examples of that as we go on. But first, I wanted to tell you the strategies that I'm going to share with you so that as I'm going over the theoretical stuff about timelines and stuff like that, you know that there's going to be a big payoff for it. So the first strategy I'm going to share with you is an upsell strategy that converts 30 to 50% consistently. And I just got a text message yesterday. I'm not sure how many of you would know Aaron Fletcher of the Fletcher method, but he just texted me yesterday because he followed this strategy and he couldn't believe it. He made an extra $200,000 in the last 2 weeks because his cart value on a low-price product is now $550 based on upsells that are taking a low-price product and making the cart value really high. 2 magic words that'll increase your click-through rates on your ads by up to 50%. How to use this method that uses Post-it notes to find the hook that'll boost your ROAS by 300%. How to get a list of your competitors' customers for 3 cents a customer. How to make money on getting leads without ever having to sell those people anything. The secret that makes YouTube advertising work, that'll boost conversions on any marketing piece, not just YouTube. An unknown strategy to cut advertising costs in half on YouTube. An easy upsell that got me a 78% conversion rate and has been knocked off a few times with similar results. And a strategy that uses only the PSs and emails to create and sell a coaching program. So those are the ones I'm going to cover in this presentation. But first, I want to give you some examples of that timeline graph so that you can see it in action, so you don't have to take my word for it. So this is a report that I wrote in 2006. I wrote it because I had 3 months until I had this big project, and I wanted to get some clients in between, so I decided to write a report. I hope to get a dozen clients, but I got a lot more than a dozen clients. This report went viral, and so it was downloaded millions and millions of times. And in 2006, it generated $3.5 million in 6 to 8 weeks. Or in 12 months, it generated $7.4 million. By year 2, it had already generated $10 million, and God knows how much it's made me over the years. I taught it to a couple of clients of mine at that time. So I taught it to Alex Jeffries. He wrote a report called Guru's Nightmare. I taught it to Mike Filsaime, and he wrote The Death of Internet Marketing. And I taught it to Anik Singhal, who wrote The Circle of Profit. And Alex and Mike made 7 figures with their report, and I think Anik made 8 figures. And then in 2011, so 5 years after I had done that, I taught it publicly for the first time. So it's a 5-year delay. And there's no question that if you were just to write a report today, a 30-page report, the likelihood that it would go viral, that it would build your reputation, do everything that it did for you, that it did for me, it's not going to happen, right? So for me, after I wrote that report, I wrote 7 reports in 18 months. Because at that time, that was the single best strategy that I knew for my business to grow. And these reports put me on the map. As you can see, when I was teaching it to my clients, the insiders, right, the results and effort was high, and then over time, it degrades. Okay. Next one, these are the 2 owners and founders of Agora. So Mark Ford in the middle, and Bill Bonner on the right, and obviously that's me on the left. And here's what Mark had to say about the impact of one strategy that I brought into Agora. And then I'm going to walk you through that strategy.
In the digital age, we went from 100 million to $1 billion because of that precise thing.
So just that precise thing. So here's a letter from Bill Bonner. It's a $1 billion testimonial. $1 billion, right? And that's not my idea, right? I'm going to walk you through the timeline. But when we brought it into Agora, conversion rates went up immediately overnight across the board. So in the US, it went up 400%. In France, 300%. In Germany, 250%. Then when we combined it with a promo called The End of America, which was the most successful newsletter launch of all time, it was so successful that we could advertise on Fox News, a 30-second spot, send people to a 70-minute VSL, and still be cash flow positive, which is insane, right? Like, someone's watching Fox News, there's a man who has a prediction, and then you run to the website, and now you have to watch a 70-minute VSL, and somehow that worked, right? So I didn't invent the VSL. I invented the automated webinar, but the VSL was invented by John Benson. And John Benson first created a VSL at the end of 2005, early 2006, for himself. And when he did that, sales skyrocketed for John, right? In 2006, he wrote the first VSL for a client, Mike Geary, who had 6-pack abs. And I saw that. And that's when I brought it to Agora. In 2009 was the first time that John taught it publicly. He taught it at Boardroom, which was another direct response company, for just like the top 20 copywriters in the market. People like Clayton Makepeace, Gary Bencivenga, like those people. And then in 2010 was the first course that was ever created on VSLs. So 2005 to 2010, there were no courses. In 2017 at Agora, when we split test a VSL versus a sales page, there was no longer any difference. So what once gave us a 400% increase in the United States now gives us no difference. Once again, you see that transition happening through time. Automated webinars. I wrote a report in 2008 explaining automated webinars and why I thought it was going to be the future and how we were doing it. And it was called Supercharge Your Marketing with Evergreen Event-Driven Marketing. This was in the report, and it was basically the funnel that a lot of people still follow today with an indoctrination sequence in the beginning, a follow-up sequence afterwards, dealing with no-shows differently than people who did show, dealing with people who showed and bought differently than people who showed and stayed and didn't buy, and people who showed but bailed early, like all different segments, all being mailed to differently. In my business, when we invented it, we were selling like a couple back ends a month because we didn't have a phone room, we didn't have anything like that, to selling 10 to 15 back ends a month. Because back then, like, it was easy to get people to register, it was easy to get people to show up, and it was easy to sell. So crazy change in our business, right? I taught it to Mike Filsame, who created Webinar Jam and EverWebinar based on our software and this report. I taught it to Russell Brunson because at that moment, Russell he owed the government a little bit over $1 million in back payroll taxes, which you go to jail for. So he was freaking out. So he flew down to Florida, and I gave him the software, gave him the report, said this will solve it. And 3 months later, he had made back the $1 million. Taught it to Frank Kern, taught it to Todd Brown. 2 years later, I did a $10,000 workshop on it just for subscribers of Founders Club, so it wasn't public. And then I think another 2 years after that is when all the webinar courses started to come out, right? So it's the same progression that you see time and time again. One last example, more on the effort side than on the result side, but same difference. So in 2007, my company, Strategic Profits, was the first to ever live stream from an event. We had to snake like ISDN lines through the hotel. We had the trucks out front with the satellites. It's not the same as now. The iPhone was invented that year, just to give you perspective. So we had 10,000 people show up. We would have had more, but that was the most that we could handle, just because it was a live stream from a seminar, like, because it hadn't been done, and everybody wanted to just see it. So we had to do no marketing. When I was coaching, twice a year I would have a free seminar just for my clients, like a no pitch, just all teaching kind of thing. So this was from one of those, and at the end of that first hour of my presentation, we made an offer that told people, like, this is free for our clients. If you join right now and become a client, you can watch the rest. And so sales were coming in at over 100 coaching program sales a minute. Jeff Walker and I were fighting because scarcity travels. So when you have something where people get boxed out of it, the next thing will do as well, even if there is no scarcity in the next thing, because it just carries forward. And we were going to be selling something in 2 weeks from now, and he wanted that scarcity to travel over. But me, as the business owner, making that kind of money, $300,000, because it was a $3,000 program at that time, $300,000 a minute. I'm like, can we just put this on, leave this on for another minute, please? So we turned it off after 3 minutes because we had to. But that's how powerful it was to do something different at the time. A year later, now live streaming was more common. So I did a 24-hour live stream where I sat at my desk and just answered people's questions for 24 hours. And we got 30,000 people to show up. We were on the front of Ustream because that was the live streaming platform at the time. I pushed Gary Vaynerchuk to the side. He was behind me. He's a friend. But this time, we had about 30,000 people show up. I answered questions for 24 hours. We beat John McCain that day. We actually had the highest attended live stream, so we beat Obama. Didn't have one that day, or we would have beat him too. Then a year and a half ago, I did another live stream. And on this live stream, Chris and Taylor flew down to Delray. Russell Brunson flew in, Neil Patel, Ryan Dice, Mark Ford, right? Had about 50 different gurus, like, in one building to do this 24-hour live stream where I was on for 24 hours, and every half an hour there was a different guest, right? And this is some of the people that were there. This is the backyard of my house. And if you can see there, Maxwell Finn, if you know who he is, Charles Kirkland, Todd Herman, the Morrison brothers, Jeff Walker, Alex Jeffries. There's Chris right in the middle with his denim shirt on, in front of Kurt Molly, right in the middle. And then the Morrison brothers, Ryan Levesque, Perry Marshall, a whole bunch of people, right? And believe it or not, we got 30,000 people on that. So me 24 hours alone in 2008, sitting at my desk for 24 hours, 30,000 people, needed to get this kind of firepower like 12 years later to make a live stream as special. The point is, though, understanding that in your own experience, the likelihood of coming up, of seeing a winning tactic is actually higher than finding out one of these tactics in a course. So the first thing that should be a takeaway for you guys is that you got to pay attention to all the different sales pages and how people are marketing, because in there, you will often spot something that's not being taught yet. So how do you get these kind of ideas, and how do you know when the right time is? So the first thing is to be on the lookout for anything that is different. Anything that you see that's different, that catches your attention, recognize that it might be capturing other people's attention. Now, generally, you start a presentation like this. I really don't like doing this, but I'm going to just share some stuff about my past, and then I'm going to just end this little section with a 3-minute video. The video is something that if you're a coach, I strongly recommend that you have something like this created. So this was done for me for a campaign when we were doing that live stream, right? But it's just about getting a bunch of your clients on Zoom calls being interviewed by somebody who knows what they're doing and knows what they're looking for. Because what you're going to see is that while the results that I got people are in the video, that's not really what the video is about, right? It's a much more like social proof, authority building video, all right? Which we'll get to in about 3 or 4 slides. Okay, so I think I'm the only guru in this space that's been paid to teach at Google, at Microsoft, and Yahoo. Here are some testimonials about me from Dan Kennedy, right? Rich is a bona fide multimedia entrepreneur, expert in streamlining businesses, operations, blah, blah, blah. Jay Abraham, Rich is one of the rare individuals that actually transforms lives, business fates, and financial destinies. Brian Tracy, Rich's coaching program has made a bigger difference in the profit margins of high-level internet marketing than anyone or anything else, period. And the one my favorite, Rich has turned more startup entrepreneurs into 7- and 8-figure success stories than anyone else I know, and that's Jay Conrad Levinson, the author of every single guerrilla marketing book that has ever been put in print. I think this is the video, so watch this, and then I'll explain a little bit more.
I was a one-man show, a closet warrior, as we say, and Rich gave me the courage to realize that I had a real business. And from there, I was able to go not from just a 7-figure business, but to an 8-figure business within the next 2 years.
I went from making a 5-figure income to a 7-figure income.
My blog went from $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month, and then $20,000 a month. I believe we went from 1.3 million to 2.4 million within a year.
Everybody else was just coming up with the tricks and the hacks. Here was this guy who brought not just practical digital online marketing wisdom, but he brought practical business with him.
Everybody I know is like, you need to know Rich.
This is the guru's guru. This dude teaches all the people that we're all reading from.
You got to go to the guru to the gurus.
This guy is the guru to the gurus.
When you get inside kind of the inner circles, everybody knows who Rich is.
Rich was the first person who really explained online marketing in a way that I really could understand and apply.
It was like the light came on in a dark room and I saw, oh, there's a whole layer to running a business I'd never thought about.
Since the time that I started working with him, I've generated millions and millions of dollars in revenue.
More money started coming in. Then all of a sudden I'm producing products and coaching programs and building an audience that needs what I am good at.
And I'm getting $5,000 for my 12-week program. I'm getting $2,000 for my 4-week program.
But I want to say this, that it's been about more than just the money. I feel like in many ways he gave me my life back.
Besides being a guy who thinks strategically and thinks in terms of solution, Rich is a good guy. It was freedom. That's the easiest way I could put it. It was freedom. A sense of freedom, a sense of hope and future, where I could see a path to get to where I wanted to go that I wasn't going to get to on my own.
Someone like Rich can really put worth in you that you're not seeing.
Confidence. In business, so much of our success depends on our own internal confidence.
Having the confidence, knowing the fundamentals and understanding how the business moves.
He works with people who are having your same problem. So he's able to show me someone like me. It's not just someone talking about hypotheticals. These are tried tactics that he's done year in, year out.
I'm glad he's back around helping people.
I'm excited he's coming out of retirement.
I know that anything that comes out from Rich Shepherd is going to be top quality.
Best coach, best mentor of my life.
His main concern is making sure that he's delivering more than he promises in every project that he works on.
It had a huge impact on my business, so I'm excited for all the people who will benefit from it this go around. I would just say do it before he goes back into the vault.
I think that you will get just some immense value from working with him.
Even better than he seems, which is rare on the internet.
So like a video like that will cost like $1,000 or $2,000 to have made. And a video like that does more than just share some testimonials. Like people see themselves in it. They want confidence. They want that freedom. They want those things. I don't know what those would be for you, right? But having someone who knows what they're doing, just do a bunch of Zoom calls with your best clients. You can send out an email that says success stories wanted, reward offered, and that subject line will get tons of people to open it and raise their hand. Okay, so this is a total like aside, but I have AD, and so I have to go on one tangent to just feel good about things, because I always do. So I figured put one in here so I stay on track everywhere else. But this also should help you in the way, as you come across stuff, handling it in a way that doesn't make you overwhelmed and overloaded, but allows you to see like the patterns. I learned a lot of this from a gentleman. I'm just going to play out the whole slide so I can just explain it in a bigger one fell swoop kind of thing there. Okay. I learned this from a gentleman by the name of Tiago Fort. He has a product called Build a Second Brain, which I highly recommend if you're someone who does a lot of research and stuff. I found him, and we traded time, because I found him by doing a lot of searches on personal knowledge management, and my argument to him was, nobody's looking for personal knowledge management. Like, you have to market as a solution to certain problems, not weirdos like me that type in personal knowledge management and look to learn stuff. So we all do elements of this. It's just a question of whether you do it cohesively in a workflow that is consistent, right? You do personally curate what you read. Like, you're making decisions about what comes across your screen. And you're out there seeking for stuff, I'm sure, as well. And you find stuff. And when you find stuff, you go through some kind of process. This is mine: filter, capture, progressive sum, which I'll explain in a second, personalize, and link to other ideas, which is really important. Then you share it, whether it's with clients, with friends, with just in your own journals or whatever, right? And then output to others, right? So that's the process. The reason why that's important, I'll get to in a second, but I want to show you, like, after I learned from Tiago, what I did was I wanted to create a central repository where everything that I do goes to. So everything I do goes into Evernote, everything. And I process everything through Evernote, which means that, like, audio memos that I record on my watch go right into Evernote, right? Any email I plan on reading that's a page goes into Evernote. Goodreader, which I use on my iPad, goes into Evernote. Any Google Docs anyone sends me goes into Evernote. Any article I come across in Chrome goes into Evernote. I won't read it while I'm in Chrome. There's no reason to. And when I start reading it in Evernote, if it turns out it's not good, I just delete it. But I'm doing stuff as soon as I'm starting to read it, which I'll explain in a second. Feedly, handwritten notes, just basically everything, right? All goes into Evernote. That's my central repository of where everything goes, which makes it a lot easier to connect and link things because it's all in one place, right? And when I do a search, I can pull up everything that's related to that search, that phrase, the term, and now all of a sudden I see connections in my emails to this, to that, right? Learning is not the storage of information a lot of people think. Learning is simply making connections. And it's a lot easier to connect things when they're all together. And creating connections with what you already know, with what you need to know, with what you're learning right now, you mix those around and you now start to see patterns emerge. So this is just something that, it's a screenshot of my notes from a book from Dan Kennedy on the 7 secrets of mind control copy. And so I read it, and then everything that I highlighted went into Evernote. So what you're looking at is an Evernote page. Now you'll see that there's some stuff that's bolded. And that's because the first time I touch a note, I'm bolding whatever I think is most important. So even though everything on this page is a highlight from the original document, now that it sits in Evernote, anytime I touch a note in Evernote, the first time I touch it, if I'm going through the whole note, I'm now bolding what I think is most important, like why this is staying in my Evernote, right? So I can quickly see, like, if something has no bolds, I haven't touched it, right? And a note becomes worth more to me the more times I touch it. And not everything that I do goes through this whole sequence. And the second time I go through it, I'm only now looking at what I bolded, because that was the most important part. And I'm highlighting parts of the bold that I think are even more important than just the bold. Chris was talking about System 1 and System 2, right, with thinking fast and slow. So System 1 being the more impulsive, and System 2 being the more thinking that we try to avoid as much as possible and try to use System 1, right? So I'm using System 2 when I'm doing this to prepare for my future self, who is going to look at this in System 1 and can just look at what I highlighted and know what's important, right? And then the next time I go through it, I'm going to take everything I highlighted and I'm going to put it in bullet points at the top, or I'll have my assistant do that. And only then, when it's in bullet point, like on top, like everything I highlighted, then I write my response to those, right? So that's how I create my content. And then these all link together into notes on a topic, etc. So it's just a very powerful process. Like I said, total tangent, but in one way. In another way, not, because if you want to come across and develop your own marketing tactics that actually move the needle, you need some kind of process where you're, like, immersed in stuff. And I had this conversation like over a decade ago with Todd Brown when he used to work for me, and we were talking about launches back then, and I was telling him that in a launch, you need scarcity, right? Amateurs, they're just going to follow what's been done. A pro figures out a new way to inject scarcity into the equation that hasn't been done before, right? So that it's 10 times more powerful, right? So it's leveraging the same principles, but in a new tactic. And if you keep your eyes peeled and you know what you're looking for, oftentimes you'll see stuff like this way before like other people get wind of it. Okay, so Jay Abraham and I have been partners, not on everything, but we've had partnerships going for the last 20 years. I think I'm his longest standing business friendship and also his longest standing business partner. And in the 20 years, I started out as a customer, then a client, then a friend, then a partner. And over the years, he sometimes gets into a real good groove, then he forgets about this. But when he's in his groove, and so sometimes I remind him of this, he starts every phone call the same way. And you probably all start your phone calls the same way, but you do it in a way that's probably less effective. You probably say, how's it going? Or how you're doing. Jay doesn't say that. Jay says, what's working now? And think about it. If you speak to 20 or 30 people a day and you ask them what's working, guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to know more than when you started. And if you did that every day, very quickly, you'd start amassing like quite a bit. And it's not a hard question. And if they say nothing's working right now for me, what have you seen out there that's working? Just an easy way to start like accumulating the kind of information you need to grow your business in maybe a different way. So yeah, I launched this product called Steal Our Winners. And so everything I'm going to share with you now is from there. And the whole goal of Steal Our Winners was two things really, or a couple of things, let's say. The first was to deliver something to online marketers that was at the beginning of that graph, not at the end of the graph. And also, because I'm someone who's known more as a strategy, systems, kind of business model kind of guy, there's nothing inherently sexy about that to put into a low-price front-end product. So for years, I retired in 2012, and then I unretired in 2017. That's why some of the people were like, glad he's back. But all the years when I was doing my thing, like it just bothered the crap out of me that I couldn't develop a sexy kind of front-end product. And so I promised myself if I ever came back, I was going to have the most sexy front-end product, and that's what I've tried to develop. Now, another total aside, but I think I have time for all these. So Agora Publishing, right, the most successful information publisher of all time. And I've been with them since they were a $100 million business, and we've passed $2 billion. We're selling a division right now, Stansberry, for $3 billion. Our front ends, 95% of them are newsletters. And there's a specific reason for that. Newsletters have some elements that make them the ideal front end, but it could be something other than a newsletter, but packaged similarly. Newsletters, you don't sell a newsletter by selling what's coming because you don't know what's coming. So you can't sell that, right? So the way you sell a newsletter is by premium or by bonus. So I think I'm older than most people here, but not everyone. So some people will remember this. Like Sports Illustrated used to have a promotion that was like, subscribe to Sports Illustrated and get a football phone. It was a phone in the shape of a football. That's selling by premium. So Agora sells by premium because we sell newsletters, right? And the benefit of that is that you could have 20 different copywriters working on a promotion for the same product, and they will all be different because the copywriter is coming up with the premium. So therefore, they're all different. It also allows you to create a premium on anything that happens to be hot in the moment, right? Which allows you, if you have a newsletter in internet marketing and all of a sudden this one tactic becomes popular, you could have a premium just on that, and you can just, whatever's popular in the moment, you can create a premium. And now you have a promo for your product. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking they got to create new products all the time. You don't. You just have to create a way of promoting those products that's different all the time. And then the other benefit of a newsletter, at least on the Agora side, is that you now have a year to sell them a back end, because a newsletter is a 12-month relationship, right? We sell at Agora, we sell them annually, right? So it's $50 a year for the newsletter. It gives a lot of time for the buyer to bond with the guru to want to buy a back end, right? So yeah, this is where I try and, so this product that I have, Steal Our Winners, we deliver about 8 strategies or tactics each month that the world does not know about yet that's crushing it. And we have about 120 contributors. Pretty much every top person in the space is a contributor. And when they have something good is when we do something, right? So I'm talking to most of these people most of the time, And it's only when they have something like, I don't have anything this month, I got nothing new, so just go to the next person. Okay, so now we're diving into the meat. Like I said, I'm giving you an overview of each of these, but in depth, you need the videos. So can your upsells consistently convert 30 to 50%? And this is the one that Aaron Fletcher just texted me yesterday about. It comes from Justin Goff. So Justin Goff is really like one of the top copywriters out there. He's got a mastermind with a lot of other copywriters and businesses in it. So when he tested out this upsell process, he wasn't only testing it out on himself, he was testing it with 50 other super players that were going hard and doing lots of marketing. So the Olaf method really just stands for the 4 things that you optimize as part of your upsell. You optimize the offer, the length, the opening, and the format. And according to Justin, there are 3 types of offers that tend to be most congruent and work well on an upsell. Done for you version of what they just bought, more of what they just bought, get the primary result of what they just bought even faster than from what they just bought. Right? So those 3 are the most congruent and tend to work best. The length. Increase your upsell length to boost conversions. It seems counterintuitive. Most people try to rush through their upsell process. The longer you keep them watching, the better. And he goes into different lengths for different purposes. The opening, which every time I talk to an insider, like I was just talking to Taylor about this, talking about how Aaron had texted me what a big bump it got and how counterintuitive the opening is, because the opening, don't write down what I say because the video will be more accurate. I'm going by memory, but I think it was like 5 to 8 minutes of just congratulating them on their purchase. It seems way too long. Right? If someone showed me that, I'd be like, you want to cut that down to a minute and then get to it, but I'd be wrong. So it's this whole like new buyer initiation, like for a few minutes before it actually gets into the upsell. The page looks like this, right? Important, do not close this window or click the back button. Clicking your back button might get you billed twice, and your order is not complete. Please watch this important message below, blah, 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 blah. This seems so simple, right? But that's why if I had more time, I would have included this, even Aaron's testimonial in here, just so you could see that while these things seem simple, their power is explosive. Think about what that means when your AOV jumps up that much. It means that you can advertise in many more places that maybe you couldn't have advertised before at break even. It really creates a flywheel in your business. The next one was probably the shortest segment of Steal Our Winners history, and at this point I think we have about 150 of these or something like that. This one was like 10 minutes long. Comes from a gentleman by the name of Jordan Menard. Jordan Menard is considered by many to be the best media buyer for info, just for info. That's all he does. He does it for me, does it for Bob Proctor. He started Jordan Belford. He started with Dan Locke. He started Sam Ovens. He still does Adrian Anthony Morrison. He started Ty Lopez, and he works inside Agora Publishing. So this guy is really good at selling info. And his interview, you'll see it, he just pulled up a couple of his clients' accounts, showed me split tests in 3 of them, and the ads were exactly the same, except each of the winners had 2 extra words in it at the start, and it's this. It's true. That's it. Just, it's true. ... And this was now over a year ago. It still works. I'd say it doesn't work as well as it did a year ago, but it still works. You can put emojis after that if you're feeling really daring, and just rinse and repeat. And believe it or not, when we published this, the amount of like positive testimonials we got from this, because people were just blown away. I can't believe I just added these 2 words to my Facebook ad, and results are higher. It's true, ... gets people's attention as they're scrolling like through the news feed. What's true, right? For the people that learned that back then, like they've had this advantage for the last year, right, of just higher click-through rates, paid less. There's Jordan and me, same stuff, right? Next is from Charles Kirkland, and it's using Post-its to come up with an angle that at least I've had 5 friends do this, like personally close friends of mine, and none of them ended up with the angle that they thought would win. And we're talking about pros here. We're not talking about like people who just started. And I'll show you that in a second. So it comes from Charles Kirkland. Charles Kirkland is just like one of the nicest guys in the industry. You have to be careful asking Charles for a favor because he always says yes, no matter how much time it might take him, and you might ruin like the next month of his life. So the idea is that you use this to test multiple angles around your audience pain points. And it's a really fast, cheap, effective strategy that helps you really nail the hook, nail the angle. Charles came in with a presentation that he did just specifically for me, so he goes into great detail on this. I'm just, like I said, going over the highlights. But you go to Amazon, you look at the books that are most popular in your niche, you read the comments, right? You figure out the pain points of the market from those comments. You write down the larger problem potentially behind each pain point. You sort those problems from highest to lowest frequency. You're coming up with 20 of them, right? 20 different angles in total. And you put each angle on a Post-it note. And then you run that Post-it note, like you go to Canva, actually just create a Post-it note. That's the ad. In Facebook, you spend $10 on it, on each of them, and you let it go until you know the winner, and then you go through it one more time, like by selecting the winners and then doing a little bit more. So this is my phone, and this is a message from Seth Green. Seth Green manages a lot of people's podcasts. He manages Keith Harrington's podcast and a bunch of others, right? And so he texted me, showing me, like that screen at the top was him showing me that he's doing it. So my response to him was, wow, that's fucking cool. I took the weekend off. Keep me posted, because he sent it to me on a Friday, right? I curse a lot, sorry. So this is, like a closer image of that, right? Of his different ones that he was going to test, like, why are you, who else, what if, whatever. And then this is what he sent me after, right? It upped our click-through rates by 300%, which is insane, right? That's 3 times the amount of traffic. It took us in a totally different directions. The winners were not what I bet on at all, right? So look at the date, right? Thursday, March 25th, Friday, April 2nd. Did it again. Upped our click-through rate to 9%, which is insanely high for an ad, right? So odds are there is an angle that right now you don't know that would work so much better for your market, and unless you spend the $300 and do this test, you won't know. Okay. Can you create target audiences of your competitors' customers and customers of complementary products for dirt cheap? The answer to all my questions is yes, you can, or I wouldn't be asking that. This was taught to me by Gohar Chaudhry, and Gohar's been around as long as I have. He creates all the media buying sumo courses. He's big in pay-per-view, which is what uses this, and pay-per-click as well, and just an all-around, like, veteran pro. So if you watch this video, you'll see that the video starts about something else, because he's giving me a strategy, and that strategy doesn't line up with my experience. So the strategy was, whenever you're using a VSL, you should put a squeeze page or a name capture page or an opt-in page in front of it. And I was like, you'll see the interview. I'm like, that's strange, because generally I tell people to remove the in front of the VSL if it's not doing well. Here you're saying the opposite. What's the source of traffic we're talking about? And he said, source of traffic is PPV, which I'll get into in a second. And I was like, oh, great. I've actually been wanting to have this conversation about PPV, but not about what you're talking about. I want to talk about using PPV as a way of adding a retargeting list or a targeting list of your competitors and complementary products. And he's like, I do that. I'm like, great. Then let's talk about that, because I was taught it by Tim Bird, but I haven't done a Steal Our Winners on it, and I'd like someone who's a pro to be able to teach it. So this leverages adware, and before anyone gets all uptight, adware is legal, spyware is illegal. If you use Honey, you use adware, that's adware. A lot of Chrome extensions are adware. The networks, I'm going to give you the networks that do this, but so this is a totally compliant legal thing to do. And because it's computer-based and not browser-based, the ones the networks use, you can target keywords typed into any search engine, right? You can target no matter what browser they're using. Doesn't even matter if they're in incognito mode, because it's on their computer. You can target visitors to any website. You could target visitors to any URL. So you might want to target the visitors of your competitors' websites, but what you most definitely want to target are their order pages, right? And whereas what Gohar started the conversation about was that front page should have a squeeze page on it, or a name capture, an opt-in, whatever you guys call it. In this conversation, that was less important than what you got to have on it are your tracking pixels. You got to have your Facebook pixel, you got to have your ad roll, and Google pixel on it. Because then the pixel fires, and now you can use those different platforms to target them. These are the 3 networks that sell this traffic. You don't really care what happens after that, just to be clear. Like once it pops, the target has been identified and now you can target them. Like whether they click on anything, because it's a page on their website with your targeting pixels. So these are the 3 different ones. What to target. So I just want to show you an example of what would I target, right? One of the things I would target is, this is me logged into ClickFunnels, right? And when I'm logging into ClickFunnels to see the performance of my funnels, this is the URL. I don't want to target ClickFunnels because then that would be everybody that ever goes to any ClickFunnels page, including customers who are buying stuff from people who are selling through ClickFunnels. So that's not going to work for me, right? But what I can do is I want the people who use ClickFunnels to sell because that's my target market. So what I can do is just focus on that part of the URL string, clickfunnels.com/funnels. And then anytime that shows up in a browser, it's going to pop and it's going to target for me, right? If I was doing it in Fusion, it'd be the beginning of the login. signin.infusionsoft.com/login. Because people who would be checking their stats in Infusionsoft would be logging in there, right? So it's about just understanding where the people might be in a website or URL and targeting that. Now, this is not going to blow the doors off of your business. This is just going to be like a very nice, consistent income stream that's going to work. You're not going to get every customer. It's more a numbers game, like you're just getting a good percent, right, over time. So just another great strategy that at some point I'm sure will go away. But there's me and Gohar, and the video, the audio, the transcript, the action guide. And then also he included his top sources of traffic. We had a short conversation about push traffic. And for those of you that don't know about push notification traffic, every time you go to a website and it says allow or block, there are networks that have aggregated a ridiculous number of push. So it's the most scalable type of traffic right now. There's no terms of service problems, but it's to make it work, what you have to do is do a peel and stick strategy where like wherever they're placing, you get that information back, and some sites will work for you, some sites won't, right? And you just have to turn off the ones that don't, leave on the ones that do, and you'll come down to a list that is really great traffic, really cheap, and no compliance issues. That's in there. Can you make money getting a lead? So that live stream I did about a year and a half ago with all those people flying down, we turned that into a docuseries. A docuseries is where you break it up, and we broke it up into 26 pieces. The first 10, anyone can watch for free, and each day there's one video. That video disappears, can't be watched after 24 hours. So they have a 10-day where they get to watch one at a time. And they can buy the whole series at any time. So when we first started selling it, people would opt in for it. But learn this strategy from Jeremy Blossom, who's the co-founder of StrikePoint, and my oldest daughter is actually interning there out in California right now at his agency. And he taught us this strategy. And so this page, which is the opt-in page to get the 10 free episodes, right, used to have an opt-in box right where it says sign up now for free. But now it says sign up for free as opposed to an opt-in box, and you'll see why in a second, because when someone clicks on that button, they go to what is easiest to understand, call it a lead cart that operates the same way a shopping cart would. So it's like a shopping cart, but instead of people picking what they're buying, they're picking what they're opting in for from different companies. So it's like co-reg, but just a newer and better version of it. I'll show it to you, right? So right now, and it should say your free marketing resources. This was like a demo page that I just pulled in here. But you can see that right now, a couple of things, right? That right now the 10 free episodes is in the cart, so to speak, for them. And you can see, like on the right, it says send resources to my inbox. There's one thing in the lead cart. And below that, it gives my company permission to email, text, call, whatever. Now, if someone clicks the button to add to cart, now a second thing goes into their lead cart, right? And now you'll see the button shows 2, not 1. And now it's not only giving me permission, it's giving the other person. So this is what was added, right? The $100 million swipe file from Todd Brown. And then on the bottom, it says, send resources to my inbox. And now it's given Todd Brown permission to mail them as well. right? If you were to pick all 4, it would say send all 4 resources to my inbox. I have a deal with Traffic and Funnels. I have a deal with Groove. I have a deal with Todd where they each pay me $4 a lead. We get 1.5 clicks. We get 50% of whatever's offered. So we have ones where there are 5 offered, and we get 2.5 on average. We have ones with 3, 1.5 average, and ones with 4, which is 2 average. But I approached these guys and told them, like, hey, like, I guarantee you we've all paid for the same leads from the same companies. Like, we're all paying Facebook for the same lead. We're all paying Google for the same. Like, why are we giving them our money? Like, why don't I piggyback on your lead gen? You piggyback on my lead gen. I don't sell the same things that Traffic and Funnels sells. I don't sell the same thing that Groove sells. I don't sell what Todd Brown sells. So we can do this together as opposed to splitting it up. And we know how good the traffic is because they're going to an offer right behind it. So we know, based on our conversions, how good the traffic is. So just an interesting way to work with maybe some people in your market, in your industry, to not give so much money to these big tech platforms. Jeremy goes into all the details on how to do it and everything else. Think about how much bigger your list could be, like if you had a way of getting leads where you're either at break even or better just on the acquisition of the lead. So there's me and Jeremy. He's a very handsome fellow. I don't even like the fact that our pictures are so close together because he used to be on MTV Road Rules and very charismatic guy. A new distinction for YouTube ads that's currently crushing it. This came from Walter Birch, and most people will not know that name, even if you know who gurus in the space, because there's a certain type of person that's also in our space who are really heavy hitters, who move lots of traffic, make lots of money, but they just do it for themselves. And so nobody in the world knows them, but gurus and big players know who they are, right? And we respect them. So Walter asked for a favor at some point. I have no idea what it was. I helped him. He then contacted me and said, that worked. Thank you so much. What can I do to repay you? And I was like, I don't know. Give me a strategy for Steal Our Winners. Give me something like that nobody knows that's working, right? Yeah, okay, no problem. So he gave me this thing, and we did the interview, and you'll have it. It's tease versus taste. And it comes from YouTube advertising, but I think it applies everywhere. So, and just to give you a little backstory on when I say it applies everywhere, like what I'm talking about. So in 2007, of those 7 reports that I showed you, 2 of them were about attention. The first report about attention was called the Attention Age Doctrine 1. And in that report, I was talking about how I thought attention was going to become the scarcest commodity online. And what would that mean for entrepreneurs, prospects, et cetera, right? For everyone, for society. And that was the Attention Age Doctrine 1. And then the Attention Age Doctrine 2, I was like, I figured out where I think people's attention is going to go. It's going to go to this new thing called Web 2.0 social media. And then what are the implications of that? And some of the implications are that prospects are no longer just targets, they're also your best single sales channel. They're the best marketing channel you have. And if you look at a lot of the successes that I've had, I've been able to leverage my prospects to get my message out. Not my customers, my prospects. Like my reports that went viral, they went viral because prospects who downloaded it felt compelled to share it. And so I've studied attention for for the last 20 years, right? The way I look at it is that attention dictates your entire life. Like what you pay attention to determines how you feel. At any given moment, I could pay attention to 20 different things, right? I could pay attention to what's not working in my life, and I'll be upset. If I pay attention to what works in my life, I'll be happy, right? So attention really plays a big role. So think about you're on YouTube, and you click the thumbnail, you're excited to watch that new video by Joe Rogan or whomever, and now a ad pops up. So it's a total interruption of what you didn't want this. This is not even like Facebook where you're scrolling, it caught your attention. No, you were going here, and someone put something right in front of you. So even though YouTube's targeting is far superior at this point right now than Facebook's, just because you're targeting the right person doesn't mean they're in the mood. If you ask me right now if I want an Oreo, my answer will be no. But anyone in my house will attest that once I eat one Oreo, the bag is gone. The bag is gone. That's why there's no Oreos in my house. So if you want me to eat Oreos, you give me a taste. You don't tease me that with a promise of Oreos, because I'm not really in the mood, right? So when you're clicking on a thumbnail on YouTube and you're going to see a video that you want, and now something else pops up, even though you're the right demo and psychographic, you might not be in the mood at that moment. So what gets someone in the mood is a taste, not a tease. So a tease is, in this video, I'm going to show you the 3 easiest, fastest ways to boost your conversion rates, right? Whereas a taste would be The first way to increase your conversion rates is you add an S to any verb, and it immediately takes the onus of effort off of the prospect and puts it on the product. There are two other ways that are as easy as that I'll show you in a second. So that's true, by the way, what I just said. Boost your income means that you're doing it. Boosts your income means that the thing is doing it, right? Just a copywriting thing. But the point of it is that by giving someone a taste, they're more inclined for a few things to happen. I'm going to show you what it is. So this was one of the things that Walter shared with me, and I was sharing this recently, and this was actually a friend of mine's ad. I think it's Julian Reyes. But anyway, these are 4 different ads, or 5. And you can see that the one on the left has 10 million views. So they spent a lot of money advertising that one, versus 130,000 views, 165,000 views, 64,000 views, 91,000 views, right? So the one on the left, here it starts. There's one simple kissing technique any woman can use to make a man beg to be her boyfriend, right? It's really very simple. First, you look right in the eyes, blah, 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 blah. So that is an example of a taste, because person's going right into it, telling them what to do, as opposed to all the other ones, which are teases that then eventually will go into a taste. The notes that Walter shared with me these are his notes, not my notes, right? There's a part of these notes that I want to zoom in on because it's the most important part, at least to me. So crash course, video ads, and YouTube, Facebook, right? Intro must be delivered in 3 or 4 seconds. 1 pattern interrupt, start in the middle of the action. Give them something of value right up there, like value as early as you can. You want to start in the middle of the action, that's a pattern interrupt, some kind of high desire for the target market, and it's a visual tease, right? Curiosity plus desire. And I'll read it out loud, but you should read it even internally, the thing on the bottom in the parentheses. If successful, viewer has involuntarily broken their focus, right? They were focused on seeing that thumbnail, like wherever that video is. And now they're slightly interested. And here's like the big thing. Can you get someone to think for a second, if I skip this, will I regret it later? That's all you're trying. Might there be something good in here? And I think that this applies everywhere. I don't think this just applies to YouTube. The sales letters that I've seen that work the best actually give some value early on in the sales letter, right? This is a way of buying attention. And what it tells me is that a promise of value these days is weak in getting some. People aren't as willing to trade their attention for a promise anymore. You got to like back up that promise very quickly. So this isn't a tactic as more as an overall strategy of something to think about. Are you starting every video right now in the wrong way by starting it with a tease when you could easily just jump into the action and get a much higher engagement rate? And if you've ever looked at the engagement rate of videos, you know that in the first couple seconds, it drops way down. This prevents that. So there's me and Walter and all the same stuff. Can you train YouTube's AI to find your higher converting ad placements and decrease cost per acquisition by 50%? Of course you can. Right. Simon Young is the CEO of an agency in the UK that specializes in YouTube media buying, and it's called the peel and stick method. So people who've been around a long time, this is applied to other things, but now it just applies to YouTube. So the way it works is you run an ad like you normally would to gather data for about 7 to 10 days. You let YouTube optimize its placements and everything else. Then you download the full placement list of everywhere where the ad was shown, right? And I interviewed Simon, and then he created a second video walking people through exactly how to do it, because it's hidden. Like, they don't necessarily want people downloading this, but you download it. Once you know where it is, it's really easy to find. And you download it. It looks like this, right? So placement URL, the type, the ad group, the views, the average cost per view, the cost per conversion. So this is obviously the very top of the list. I would imagine that the 60 conversions was probably like the #1 source. And all the way at the bottom are the worst performing. So you set criteria for exclusion, and he goes over different exclusions you might use depending on your business, right? And then you delete the lowest 50%. So understand what's going on. YouTube's algorithm has found all these places to put ads, and it's trying to find the places that work best for you. But YouTube is a little less careful with your money than maybe you want to be. Because when you take the 50% that haven't performed, you're taking all spend that translated into nothing. That YouTube and Google are probably going to hit a couple more times, because let's just make sure that these sources don't work, where you don't need to do that. You could be pretty confident already. It also forces YouTube and Google to then find other sources that it wouldn't necessarily be motivated to find because it would still be using those sources. So you're forcing it to get optimized a lot faster with a lot less data. After that, you upload that lower bottom half as a list to exclude from your advertising. Google then excludes all those and serves new placements to test. And you run another 7 days, then you do it again, but you only do 25%, because if you over-optimize, it's problematic, so you don't want to do that. 25%, then the next time 15%, and he walks you through it. So when we upload back the spreadsheet, we deleted the top half, we now have the bottom half, this all then becomes exclusions for the ad account. So that's a way to just immediately cut your YouTube advertising in half. Everything's in the box. Can you create an upsell that gets a 78% conversion rate? So this is a unique type of upsell if you've never done it. I did it about 1.5 years ago. It's been copied a bunch of times. At Agora, I'm not a finance guy, so I'm a marketing guy. But there's 30 ways to make money in the stock market, more or less. You're either buying and holding, selling short, dividend play. There's only so many ways. And at Agora, when copywriters work on a promotion, I kid you not, like it takes 8 weeks, 6 weeks of it is just on the idea. The whole 50-page sales letter gets written in 2 weeks. The big idea is what we focus on. And the reason we focus on it is because, I don't know why, it's called the categorical imperative at Agora, but the categorical imperative was used by the philosopher Kant, and it's totally not related, so I don't know why we use that term. But anyway, it's called the categorical imperative, and the point of it is that you don't want to be categorized. You don't want the prospect on the other side of the screen to be like, I know what that is, that doesn't apply to me, whatever. So when it's more cloaked in metaphor, people don't know what it is, they lean in, and now they can get excited, right? Because you don't want that premature kind of decision to not go forward until you've been given a chance, right? So I wanted to create an upsell, not a back end, an upsell that worked on the same philosophy, right? And it did, it worked. It got a 78% conversion rate. I'm going to play the upsell for you. It's like 2 minutes long. Hi, Rich Sheffrin here. And I have this that I want to tell you about. But before I tell you about this box with a question mark on it, you can see that there's a flurry of activity behind me. And I'm going to tell you why there's a flurry of activity behind me and why this box has a question mark. But before I do, I want to talk to you about trust. Who do you really trust in the market? If you trusted, they've disappointed you. If you trusted, they've disappointed you. In fact, trust is being decimated each and every day online as people take advantage of entrepreneurs worldwide. So what I wanted to do is a test. I wanted to see how much you trust me, and I also wanted to condition the habit, you could say, of trusting me going forward. Inside this box, I have something that is easily worth 30 times, if not many more times, what I want to charge you. So I want to charge you $30 for what's in this box. My promise to you is that it's worth at least $1,000. And when you get it, you will not be disappointed. My goal is to reward your trust. My goal is so that when you get this box, you think that trusting me was one of the smartest decisions you ever made. And those that don't take this offer regret that choice from this day forward. That's my goal, that's my intention. I'm telling you right up front. And on top of that, I want to remove all risk. So you get this for 1/30 of what I would charge. And in addition to that, if you don't feel it's worth the price, if you don't feel it's 30 times worth the price, then all you need to do is let customer service know, keep the box, keep the material that's in the box, and we'll still give you a refund. But I'm not worried about that, because the truth is that I know that you're going to love what's inside this box. I know you're going to be ecstatic about what's inside this box, and I'm not going to announce it until the actual live stream. So on February 19th, I'm going to open this box. I'm going to reveal what's inside it. And those of you who took me up on this, who trust me, I can promise you're going to be richly rewarded for it. So I will see you on the live stream. Hopefully you're one of the people that trusted. Until then, to higher profits and beyond, Rich Sheffrin over now. So there's no reason to, if you're wondering about the tattoos, I'm Jewish, and my dad was a successful businessman that left all his money to my mom. And my mom is more religious than I am, and it's not worth my inheritance that I'll get one day to get tattoos, so I get them on Amazon. They're $1. And sometimes when I want to be a badass, I put on fake tattoos. And I get to live, my mom still cries when she sees the fake ones, and I'm like, they're fake, Mom, they're fake. Maybe when I'm like 70 and she's passed away, maybe on the way to her funeral, I'll get some arm sleeves at 70 or something. But yeah, that's why. But if someone's buying stuff from you already, they trust you, and it's very hard to say no to that offer. Hence, 78% said yes. I've seen Frank Kern copied it, and the guy from Bulletproof copied it. They did it differently, but same mystery box type thing. Now, we had $4,000 worth of stuff in there. The one thing that was in there was the media buying boot camp that we use at Agora. So the 12-week training program that we use to train media buyers was included in that program because we don't sell it. And we did sell it for a little while for $3,000, and then we didn't want to sell it anymore because we didn't want it out there with any claims. But in a box, it doesn't matter, right? So it's something that we were never going to sell again. And I want people to buy from me, feel like trusting me and buying from me was a good decision. And therefore, the next time I ask them to trust me, they trust me more. And anyone who didn't finds out, holy crap, I wish I would have bought that. But the bottom line of why it works is that it's very hard if the person trusts you to say no to a deal like that, right? And it was just an easy way for us to get an extra like $23 and change from every single person that went through that funnel, right? Because 80% times 30 would be 24, so it's a little bit less than $24 from every eyeball. And when I look at upsells, that's what I'm looking at. I want to know per eyeball what it makes me. Because when I'm looking at a whole funnel, I can see if the order's messed up based on this is a lot higher per eyeball. This should be earlier in the funnel. This should be later. All right. This one also was another segment that the intention was not what I'm talking about here. And this one was still a full process on something else, which is really valuable, just his whole copywriting process. But he mentioned something in passing that grabbed my attention, which was he launched, created, and did everything related to a coaching program just through the PS of emails, which to me I found fascinating. So it came from Kevin Rogers. His company's name is Copy Chief. He's well known in the copywriting space. Really great copywriter. He actually wrote copy for me about 15 years ago when he used to be a protege of John Carlton. And I had asked John Carlton to write sales letters for me. He had him write it. So you're sending out emails with a PS that I'm going to show you in a second for about a month. Now, if you think about it, this is not like sending a letter in the mail. This is email, and who's looking at the PSs of your emails, but only people who read your emails, which are your best customers. So the only people that are seeing this PS are your best customers. Mention the PS responses in future emails if you want, just to get more people interested, and if you still need to, you can send a couple of standalone emails after it's been in the PS a couple times if you're not getting enough traction. So this was the PS. This August, I'm looking to work with 50 pro freelance copywriters to help them level up and become in-demand freelancers. Here's what I'm looking for. And then a whole bunch of criteria, right? You've been working as a professional freelance copywriter for at least 6 months. You want to level up your freelance career, right? Blah, blah, blah. You're committed to becoming a top professional. You can commit at least 5 hours per week for 8 weeks. You are friendly and coachable. You can keep a secret, right? If that's you, hit reply to this email. Let me know a little about where you're at with your freelance career. I'll be choosing people in the next couple of weeks. So now he gets responses. And he's getting responses from his best customers about what they're struggling with, where they're at in their career, right? And all this information. Oops, did I press that? Right, so you collect the responses, and you extract the critical info from each, and I'll show you how in a second. And from that, you can brainstorm a solution to solve those problems, and you can also create an offer to solve their most common problems, and you also have all the lingo for the copy. This is something that Kevin went over, where this fits into his whole like copywriting blueprint, so you'll see that. But you use this, the 4x6 copywriting formula, which he goes over. You use all the stuff you just got, and you answer these questions. And he makes it really easy, right? Because he gives us this. He puts all of their answers just on the left-hand side. And then he's extracting the words that they use to talk about their struggle, about their timeline of when they want to achieve success, the friction they're experiencing, and any doubts that they have, right? And so this just aggregates all the different phrases, all the different ways to talk about the struggle, all the different ways to talk about how quickly they want results, all the different ways of the obstacles that currently stand in their way, and all the different ways of self-doubt seeping in. And then from there, you can just plug in these different phrases. How to blank, what they want, in blank, their timeline, without blank, that's their friction, even if those are their self-doubts. And you can use it. It's basically like, how do you engineer? And I used to do something similar. Like when I would write my reports, I didn't sell my coaching program yet. That was what I sent out to get people to believe what they needed to believe in order for my product to be valuable in their eyes. And I would interact with the market for the month or two after I released the report before I actually released my program to figure out now what the program was going to be based on how people reacted to it. And it would all be based on that interaction. So I had no idea what the program would be until I started delivering it, but I would get a sense of it from the conversation I had with people after the report came out. What he's doing here is very similar. He's just doing it all through email. Like, why would you want to come up with your own ideas when the people that you're going to target are willing to tell you what they want, what they're struggling with, their timeline, and the friction, right? So I'd never heard of a coaching program being conceived, being created, clients found for it, and everything from the PSs and emails. And so even though he was talking about copywriting, you'll see that I keep pressing him. Tell me more about this PS strategy, because I think it's pretty spot on. I think it's pretty cool, something that we definitely want to do. I don't think we'll do it for a coaching program, but we'll do it for something else. All right, I have 5 or 10 minutes to answer any questions. I can answer questions about anything we covered here, but I could also answer any questions. I've coached most of the gurus here. I've heard lots of questions over the last couple of days. I would have liked to have injected my 2 cents, but it wasn't the place, so I just bit my tongue.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to say thanks, especially for Evernote tangent. I think one of the most valuable things is seeing how someone like yourself thinks, and so that was actually really helpful. So thanks for including that. The question is, I'm not sure how many of us are in the room that are doing more than $2.5 billion a year, but for those of us doing less,
I do less, yeah. So trust me.
I'm curious. I think we all have the agoras in our own industries that we are, in a sense, competing with. There's no way we can compete with the game that they're playing. So what are the advantages that you see us having, the $200,000, $300,000 or less, or the $20,000 a month or less, that we can compete by playing a different game, or just how do we compete with the big dogs?
Cool. I'll answer that generally because I want to pick out a few things that I see a lot of people make mistakes on. I was the first internet business coach, as crazy as that might sound, right? Like I was the only one. And now there's probably got hundreds of thousands. And a lot of the stuff that I taught, everybody teaches these days, right? That's just the way it is. But some of the things I taught are still not taught. And I'm shocked because I coach so many people and they all teach, so I would have thought like it would make its way. And it's one of the ones I think is most important. So everyone knows you build a business around your strengths, right? That's their shit, Sherlock, right? But what most people don't know and they don't realize is that you want to build a business that makes your weaknesses irrelevant. And when I talk to entrepreneurs and they tell me that they are disappointing their business, that they're not doing everything that their business needs from them, I immediately in my head say that's probably because you designed your business wrong. So I want to give you 2 examples personally, and then we'll go over other things you can do. But so I am not money motivated. Like I'm money motivated when I don't have enough. And then I'm an away from person. It's not a healthy thing, right? There's 2 modes of motivation, towards and away. Away is really powerful until it's not, because you're far enough away, right? I work out every day, not to be in shape, but just not to be fat, because I was fat as a kid, and that motivates me all the time. But if I get in really good shape, I know I can coast a little while because I don't exercise to look good. I exercise not to be fat, right? I'm not money motivated unless like I don't have money, and then I'm very money motivated. But a business has to be, right? A business has to be like, the business has to be money motivated. So I've always had like really aggressive profit sharing so that my whole team was highly motivated. So like back before I retired, like my whole team got together on Fridays, looked at the financials, because more than their salary was made on bonuses, and they're looking at the end of every month, like we would share the profits. 50% of the profits got divvied out. And so every Friday they were looking at where they were on track for that month. What can they do to grow business? I wasn't in those meetings. I didn't need to be. Another thing is that because of my AD and all my other flaws, and I have a lot of them, I can't create a course ahead of time. It's absolutely impossible. It'll never be finished. I'll always be working on it. Even Renee and I got into it a little bit because she wanted the slides like a couple days ago. And I'm like, if I had my way, I wouldn't finish the presentation until a minute beforehand. Like over the last day and a half, I've been thinking about other stuff I could put in there, and it gives me anxiety, right? So I can't finish a course like in a vacuum. If you locked me in a hotel room for a month, it still wouldn't be done. Like I just, so I always had to, but knowing that about myself, like I engineered my business so that I only created courses live, like where there would be massive like ramifications if I didn't show up. And when I did my coaching programs, like every Wednesday was the presentation, and no matter when I started, I could start that Wednesday as soon as I was done with that one for the next week. I could start that and have a whole week, or I could start 2 days before. It wouldn't matter like when I started, because I would not be sleeping until it was finished, and I wouldn't finish until like right before it was time to go live. So I engineered into my business that I never had to do that, because I know do the other what I am incapable of. And so I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they design their business over some mythical entrepreneur that they might be one day. But there's a book that was very influential to me. I read it like 10 or 12 years ago, just related to this, not overly influential, that was called Change or Die, and it was written by a famous, I think, cardiac surgeon, I think, was who wrote it. And yeah, and it was when people are given that choice, you either have to change or you will die. 90% end up dying. So if change is that hard, building your business banking on your change would be a problem. The other thing that I would say is that understand the role that you really play. And that's another like big boy entrepreneur kind of way of looking at things that a lot of small entrepreneurs don't. You're in the movement of resources. A lot of entrepreneurs think they're doers. And as long as you're thinking doing, and you still have to do shit, right? But you should never confuse your own goals with your business goals, right? You might want to get good at copywriting, but if your business needs copy, like that should not be in the timeline of you getting good at copy first, right? That's ridiculous. But even there are problems in the business, how do we fix them and how do we benefit by fixing them? How do we make more money? It's not how do I fix them? How do I do this? How do I do that, right? So at some point in an entrepreneur's growth, they start looking at their to-do list as a get-done list, not as anything that should be on their plate. And that provides a lot of ability to take advantage of different opportunities, because if you can not be involved and make money, right, you can do that a lot more frequently than in the things that do involve and it's not one or the other, right? I don't want to ever paint a picture that like you're just moving resources, you never even have to answer email. No, that's not the case. But I find that most entrepreneurs think on too small of a level, like they're thinking about their work and them doing stuff, as opposed to looking out and looking at at the end of the day, right? This is like a total tangent, but I think it's totally related. At the end of the day, your business is just a system that has been designed to get an outcome for your customer. They look at your business as a system, and this is academic, but I think it illustrates the point. Like Netflix, Blockbuster, they're both systems to enjoy home entertainment. It's just a question of which system is easier for the customer, and that one's going to win, right? So you're in the business of creating a system for your customer to get some result. And whoever builds the best system and then markets it well will do really well. But you don't have to build that whole system, right? So the idea is, I once came across this company like 15 years ago. I don't know if they were successful. I don't know anything about the company, but I loved the idea of the company. And it was like they guaranteed in a year that you would be at your business vision. And the way that they would get you to your business vision is through joint ventures, strategic alliances, like with the idea that whatever is missing in your business is not missing in the world, right? So it's out there. There's a way to get it. There's a way to do a deal. There's a way to pull stuff in. And I would say you're more agile, right? Like small businesses are much more agile. I don't like Agora anywhere near as much as I used to. I actually sold them my business and then bought it back. I still work for them, but there was a time when I was a partner. And that's primarily because as a business grows, bureaucracy happens. Right? Like we were a $100 million business that had no bureaucracy. At $2 billion, there's bureaucracy, right? So everything is a lot slower. And you have the ability to be nimble. But that nimbleness disappears if you feel like you have to do it all, right? So everything I just said, I hope I tied together, right? But you have to recognize the game you're playing. You have to recognize that you don't have to do everything in your business, that there are things that you're bad at, that you need to figure out how that business thrives with, where you don't have to do those things. Yep. And you have to take advantage of the fact that you have agility and speed. And the way you do that is by recognizing that you're more about moving resources and people and actions and assets than you are about necessarily always rolling up your sleeves to solve things, right? So if we need better copy, how do we hire 4 copywriters that we end up with 2 copywriters so that we can be pumping out offers every day, if that's important? And it is important because direct response businesses are hit businesses. So like at Agora, that's how we look at it. And in retail, I was in the retail business, that's how we looked at it. There's always going to be, you take 10 swings at bat, one of those swings is going to connect and be better than the other 9. And the goal is to get to that one as quickly as possible, and then step on the gas all the way when you find that. If you're not working fast, to get to those 10 is like crazy. And like all the examples that I showed, like the one with Charles Kirkland's Post-it method, the odds of you getting it right and nailing it the first time is like, for anybody. That would be my best advice in competing with the big boys.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
I think, yeah, that was killer. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Hi.
Hi.
So we're an ads agency, but I have we do info products.
Cool.
But I have a background in language services. That's what I did before I was doing this. And I'm actually putting together a business plan to start a different but related business to license SaaS products and localize them for foreign markets and sell them there. Okay. And my question for you is kind of 2 parts. Number one, is there a significant lag in the fatigue of tactics in foreign markets?
No, they're behind us.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
So they are, okay. And second, what are the biggest problems that you would expect that I might get into in doing that as far as marketing?
So you're bringing foreign SaaS products into the U.S. or U.S. into foreign?
Taking U.S. SaaS products, localizing them to other markets and selling them.
Got it. And are you in any other markets yet?
We've done some limited, like we've done work in Spanish and Dutch.
Got it.
In the past, and it's gone well.
Yeah. So I would say, so we license, right? So there's a strategicprofits.jp. That's our Japanese site. We have strategicprofits.it. That's our Italian partners, and we have a bunch. And there is a lag. I was a big deal in Japan in like 2011 and 12, whereas a big deal here in the States in 2006, right? Like I brought my kids over, and they couldn't believe that there was like literally a 2-hour line for my autograph, and people wanted me to sign their laptops and stuff. Like, I have 3 daughters. That's cool someplace. I would say that the most important thing is you got to stick to demo at a time, one language at a time. And I don't know that you might be picking the right language. Certainly Spanish is big. I'd say Japanese market is huge, and the Brazil market is huge. Those are the 2 biggest markets, really, Japan and Brazil. Russia's good, but they knock you off so quickly, it's problematic. But maybe with a SaaS, it might be different. And China's the same way.
Yeah.
So
my main language that I know is Chinese. I know others too, but
right.
Chinese. But I know that the Chinese internet is problematic.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of going into Taiwan, but of course it's not as big. But.
Yeah. Well, I know a bunch of people that operate in Taiwan, and they do well. So there's a market there. But I would say that, yeah, Portuguese, Japanese.
Which is great, because my wife is actually Brazilian. But
yeah. Yeah, those would be the places, and don't overexpand too fast. The other, though, is that once you're in a couple areas, you benefit in a different way. I call our partners together, because everyone's figuring out different ways to sell what we have. And so we're sharing strategies, because we're selling the same thing, right? And so that's worked out really well if you can foster that. And we give people, you're the licensee in these cases, so it's a little different. I mean, we deal with minimums, like if we lock it up, there's minimums year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We give people a lot of flexibility, and it's contained not by geography, but by language. So even when I sold the business to Agora, like I kept that to myself. I'm like, so you only have it in the English language. Because in Japanese, we already have people in Italian, so that's how we do it. But I would say just don't spread yourself too thin, because that's what, if it's working, the mistake that people make is stepping on the gas too much, being in too many countries at the same time, and then having it all fall apart, because you still got to acquire, you still got to do a lot of stuff. And if you can figure out other ways of selling it, you become a better partner for the person that you're licensing it from. And you should try and foster that, because you don't know where that leads to ultimately, of them being, like you being their preferred vendor, and then them wanting you to take it in other places and stuff like that. Cool?
Thank you.
My pleasure. Hey.
Hey, Rich. Great work. Thank you
Thanks.
so much. I'm going to steal your advice and ask you what's working now. We do events for influencers and entrepreneurs for virtual events. When virtual things started exploding, we were one of the first ones taking advantage of the virtual stuff. And just wondering, one of the biggest levers for us to pull is more people on the virtual events. So what strategies are you seeing that's working in the marketplace for that?
What I've seen is, I've spoken to a bunch of people who have told me of how they pivoted during Corona and stuff like that, or COVID, whatever. And I have a steal our winners with this one guy. His name was Simone, and his last name's Vincenzo or something. But he lives in the UK. And his whole business was that you can't learn online, you have to come in person, right? Which kind of sucks when COVID happened because he had to totally change his model, right? You can't learn from a course. You have to do it in person, and then all of a sudden things change. And so he moved his model to doing a challenge every other month, right? And doing a master class in the alternating months, because a challenge, when done correctly, is labor intensive. And the upsell rate or the back end sales on a challenge are over the top generally if you do a good job. So it's understanding of trying to make it into more of a something that's done consistently, because then you build some momentum. Some other things though, I've seen Kim Walsh-Phillips do some really amazing things with her challenges, and she's done extremely well with them. She's gone over the numbers with me, and has really been a big boom for her business. I did a Steal Our Winners with Scott Oldford, and he crushed a challenge. I'm telling you this because it'll impact the front side, which is really your question. But Scott gave people a 22-question assessment, and you could call it the same assessment you might use for a coaching program and doing a strategy session. But the hook was that Scott would personally review it, and at the end of the challenge, he would text you personally with what he thinks your next best step is, whether that's something with him, someone else, or just focus on what you've got, or whatever else. And the participation rate was over the top because this was a way to get in front of Scott, and Scott's the guru here. So this is his tribe, and they would love for Scott to look over where they're at and get his best advice, whether they take it or not. And so he crushed it, and then he did another challenge. I don't know how well that challenge did, but the more that you make per head, the more you can spend per head. And I think that's critical. And then I've not seen this done, but I've always wanted to do it. So I don't know whether this would work or not, but I always wanted to do this. And that was what CBS, NBC, and all these other networks do, which is to advertise the crap out of it a half an hour before it starts, tonight and at 8 p.m., Blind Spot or this show or that show is, right?
We see a ton of ticket sales the day before and the day of.
Yeah, but the day of, to retarget everyone who bought, just to have that be seen. They're probably not even going to click on it, but you're going to get the benefit of them being reminded of this huge event that happens. I'd say the other thing that I see people make mistakes, and I would assume no one makes a mistake here, but who knows? When you have an event going on, everything else is on lockdown. When we would do a webinar funnel or anything else, they're not receiving any other emails. They're not receiving our broadcasts, they're not receiving our joint ventures, because if we really are prepping up and if this story is true that this big event is coming, what the hell are we doing talking about something else 2 days before the event? So it's all event, period. And there's an arc to that story of why it's this day and everything building up to it. My favorite platform right now is YouTube by far. It's a lot easier to scale. It's a lot easier to get better than 100% ROAS on YouTube than anywhere else right now. So that's where I'd be advertising it. You can also target ridiculously. If you wanted to, what are those influencers buying, right? Who do they follow, right? I assume most people know this, but you can target any channel. You can target any video. So if you wanted to say just all the ClickFunnels users, anyone, not ClickFunnels users, anyone that goes and watches a Russell Brunson video, I want to be in front of. Right? That's easily done on YouTube. So if you can think about who the audience is watching, you can be very precise. And then you do want to retarget them a lot, because that on YouTube also, I would imagine most of you know this, but in case, you don't pay unless they watch past 30 seconds. So the first 5 seconds where nobody can skip, unless you're YouTube bred, the goal there is to get people as interested as possible in those first 5 seconds, right? Then the next 25 seconds, or some part of that 25 seconds, it's about disqualifying as much as possible, because you want the people that get to the 30-second mark to be the ones that you actually want to talk to. So many of you might have seen Ty Lopez's ad a gazillion times on YouTube, but you never watched past 30 seconds, so he never paid for it. So he got all that branding for free, right? And retargeting on YouTube is even more insane, right? So I would spend a bunch of time on YouTube. People spend too much time on Facebook these days, and they discount YouTube, and they shouldn't. And this is the very last question, and then last question. I'll answer it quick. Go ahead.
I work with a market that's not very advanced.
Right.
Roofing companies.
Okay.
and so they don't understand this online world. A lot of them
Right.
fumble around with their apps, can't even open Facebook. When I deal with a market like this, what are some ideas that you have dealing with?
You got to take control of it. And that's the way you should have control of it anyway. Because one of the very first businesses online that I got involved with was renting single-family homes in Orlando by people like overseas that were coming to Disney who didn't want to stay in a hotel. And I didn't have any of the homes. There was a real estate agent that had the homes, right? And this is like before the internet was really popular, and now you can just do it yourself with Airbnb. This is before the Airbnb days. And I wouldn't want to send people, I wanted to get those people's names myself. I want to control the process. I frame their stuff into my site so that at any given point in time, I can turn it off. You're in the business of delivering the leads to them, right? Or you should be. The final outcome. And
the business is a business strategy for them to grow and expand their markets.
Yeah, it's just about, so last thing, promise. When I started coaching, I had no reputation. Nobody knew me, like how, what? And so there were a lot of reasons I did this, but this is what I did. It was by application. I was speaking on stage, ending in a pitch. It was the very first time I pitched, very nervous. And instead of making an offer, I made an offer, but you had to fill out an application, and you might or might not be accepted. And then what would get people to fill out that application, right? I made a guarantee. And the guarantee was, I will coach you for 1.5 years on the phone, one-on-one, right? There'll also be group calls. And in 18 months, 2 things must be true, or I'm going to give you all your money back. 1, you're making double what you're making now. 2, you're working half as much as you're working now. If those 2 things are not true, then I'm going to give you back all your money. In order to be able to fulfill that, you have to apply, because I have to look at whether I can do that for you. I can't do that for everyone. I don't have a magic wand, right? And so I need to see you. So you make an over-the-top guarantee. You make it conditional, right? But you might not even have to go that far. You're in the business of delivering an outcome. Be clear about what that outcome is. Take all the tech side, keep it on your side. They just want customers at the end of the day. And however many steps you have to put in, that's what you got to do. I had a friend who made a ridiculous amount of money in real estate during the real estate boom in 2005, 6, and 7. And he was working with, he had #1 listings for every Las Vegas condo and this, but he would have to, those leads were worth a lot of money. And for a lot of the real estate brokers, he would have to do the whole process. Like he couldn't just give them the lead. He had to design the emails. He had to do all these things because the leads are worth money and they're going to mess it up. And then they're going to blame him because they didn't get the result. So now, like, he's got to do the whole thing, and he's going to charge appropriately for it. But understand, like, how you're being judged, and then recognize that you got to set it up so that you can deliver on what you're being judged, regardless of what's fair or what should be or whatever, because that's all.
Take more control.
Yeah. That's what they want anyway. They just want the customer showing up. Any other questions I'll take? I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving until tomorrow. And I got no plans tonight, so I'll be around. So I'll answer your questions.